In the age before clocks remembered their names, before suns learned to rise on command, there drifted upon the rim of heaven a city that belonged to no hour. It hovered between dusk and dawn, where light was neither living nor gone, and the air itself seemed to breathe in dreams. Travelers of the old desert spoke of it in hushed tones beside their fires, the city beneath the sleeping sky. They said its towers were carved from forgotten moonlight, its streets paved with the size of comets, and its people forever paused between heartbeats, waiting for the world to wake again. Few believed such tales. Fewer still dared to seek it. But once, in an age when stories still remembered their tellers, there came a wanderer. He was nameless as sand, wrapped in robes the color of vanished storms, his eyes pale from staring too long into horizons. His staff was carved from a branch of the first tree that grew in shadow, and at his belt hung a charm of stone and wind, a gift from no one he could remember. He did not travel for glory, nor coin, nor wisdom. He traveled because something called to him from beyond memory, a sound like a heartbeat echoing through endless silence. For many nights he followed the desert's breath, where the dunes rolled like sleeping giants and the stars fell slow as tears. Then, one twilight that did not end, he saw it, the city beneath the sleeping sky. It floated on the horizon like a mirage that refused to fade. The air shimmered, not from heat, but from memory. Towers rose like frozen flames, their edges soft as forgotten dreams. The sky above it lay half open, painted in perpetual dusk, stars half lit, clouds half awake. The wanderer crossed a plain of silver sand where no wind stirred. When he stepped upon the city's threshold, the world went quiet, not the quiet of peace, but of something holding its breath. The gates were open, yet no guards stood watch. The streets glimmered, paved with glassy stone that reflected 1,000 sunsets. Every shadow was slow, as if light itself were tired of moving. And there were people, or the likeness of people. They stood in doorways, on balconies, in courtyards of stilled fountains, their faces serene, their eyes closed, each caught in the same silent breath. A merchant with hands outstretched, forever offering a coin. A child mid-laughter, her hair frozen in wind that no longer blew. A musician whose strings trembled faintly, caught between notes that never finished. Time had fallen asleep here. The wanderer moved among them as one might walk through sacred ruins. He felt the weight of centuries pressing against the air, yet not a grain of dust stirred. When he touched a wall, warmth pulsed faintly beneath the stone, like a heartbeat half remembered. He whispered, "Is anyone awake?" The city answered only with silence. But then, a sound, a bell, faint and distant, rang once through the twilight. The note lingered too long, stretching until it became a hum, then a sigh, then vanished. The wanderer followed it through winding streets that curved like dreams looping upon themselves. He passed gardens of glass flowers, their petals unmoving but still fragrant, and bridges that arched over rivers of still water that reflected skies which no longer turned. At last, he reached the great square at the city's heart, a vast circle of marble so pale it glowed from within. At its center stood a clock tower, its face vast as a moon. Its hands hung motionless, marking neither hour nor eternity. Beneath it, an inscription in a language older than memory read, "When the star sleeps, so shall we." The wanderer gazed upward. High above, beyond the unblinking dusk, he saw it, a star larger and nearer than any other, half veiled by dreamlight. It pulsed faintly, as if struggling to wake. A voice drifted to him, soft as dust, old as song. "You should not have come here." He turned. A figure stood in the shadow of the tower. She was draped in twilight, her hair woven from the dusk itself. Her eyes glowed faintly, as though lit from within by sleeping embers. "Who are you?" the wanderer asked. "I am the one who remembers," she said. "When all others fell into dream, I remained to keep the silence." The wanderer bowed slightly. "Then tell me, what dream is this city trapped within?" She regarded him for a long moment, and the air trembled between them. "The city dreams of the star," she said at last. "And the star dreams of the city. Each holds the other in its slumber, unable to wake. They are bound. One heart, one sleep. We who dwell here are but echoes between their breaths." "Can it be woken?" "Perhaps," she whispered. "But to wake it is to end it. The dream and the dreamer cannot be parted without sorrow." The wanderer lifted his gaze once more to the vast, half-sleeping star. "Then I must see the dreamer." the woman smiled, a sad, knowing curve of her lips. Few who enter the dream return to tell of it. Few ever wake a sleeping world, he replied. For a moment they stood together beneath the tower's shadow, two figures framed by stillness, their words hanging like dust in twilight. Then the woman said softly, "When you reach the heart of the city, seek the mirror of hours. It reflects not what is, but what once dared to be. Only there will you find the path to the star's heart." "And what will I find there?" "Yourself," she said, "and the truth you have been running from." A wind stirred then, the first in countless ages, whispering through the streets. The twilight deepened, and faintly, faintly, the city began to hum, as if some buried memory had stirred in its sleep. The wanderer bowed once more and turned toward the heart of the silent city. As he walked, the hum grew louder. Not a song, but a heartbeat, and above him the star shivered in its slumber. Thus began his passage through the city beneath the sleeping sky. The wanderer moved deeper into the city, following the hum that pulsed faintly beneath his feet. The sound was neither song nor voice, yet it drew him as surely as the tide follows the moon. The air grew thicker, woven with the scent of starlight and forgotten rain. Every few steps the world shimmered, as though he were walking through the folds of someone else's dream. He came upon an avenue of mirrors, each framed in obsidian and dust. They stood in silence, catching no reflection of his form, only faint echoes of the city's sleeping inhabitants. Within them flickered glimpses of motion, a dancer frozen mid-turn, a scholar leaning over an invisible page, a mother reaching for a child forever beyond her grasp. Time's memory flickered but never completed its breath. The wanderer stopped before one mirror larger than the rest. It was cracked through the center, and through that fracture he saw light, gentle, trembling, alive. He reached toward it, and the glass quivered like the surface of still water. Then a whisper touched his mind. "Do you remember the hour you first forgot your name?" The voice was not his own. It came from within the mirror, soft as ash, ancient as the first dawn. The wanderer's hand trembled. "I do not remember my beginning," he said, "only that I was called." "Then you, too, are bound by the dream," the voice sighed. "All who come here were once part of the star's remembering. You walk because the star dreams of walking." The mirror's light dimmed, and the voice faded into the hush of eternal twilight. The wanderer stood still for a long time, the echo of those words threading through his thoughts, like wind through hollow stone. He continued onward until the mirrors gave way to gardens of luminous trees. Their leaves glowed with pale blue light, and between their roots trickled streams of silver that sang faintly when touched by air. It was there he saw them, the few who still moved. They were not fully awake, nor fully asleep. Their eyes fluttered half open, their motions slow as the drift of planets. One knelt beside the stream, gathering light into her palms. Another stood upon a bridge, watching ripples that never reached the other side. When they spoke, their words came in fragments, unfinished prayers drifting on breathless air. "Have you come to wake us?" one murmured, her voice breaking like glass. "I have come to understand," the wanderer answered. They gazed at him with faces that shimmered like reflections on water. "Understanding is the edge of waking," said another. "But beware, the star does not sleep willingly. It dreams because it must, and dreams defend themselves." The wanderer bowed. "Tell me, where lies the heart of this city?" They pointed toward the horizon, to a dome of crystal that rose where the sky met the earth, faintly pulsing with light. "There," they whispered, "the mirror of hours, beyond it, the dreaming star." When he turned to thank them, they were already fading, dissolving into mist. Only the faint hum of their presence remained, a gentle rhythm that followed him through the trees. At last he reached the crystal dome. Its surface was alive with reflections, skies that turned, suns that rose and fell, lives that began and ended, all within the span of a breath. Upon its threshold stood the woman of twilight once more, her eyes dimmer now, her outline softer. "You have heard their voices," she said. "You have walked their dream." "I have," the wanderer replied, "and I wish to walk further." She regarded him with sorrow. "To step beyond the mirror of hours is to step into the star's heart. There, your own dream will meet its reflection. Do you have the courage to see what you have forgotten?" The wanderer stepped forward. The hum beneath his feet became thunder. The air rippled with unseen wings. And as he crossed the threshold, and the city behind him shimmered. Every tower, every silent figure, every breathless street, and the entire world seemed to lean closer, listening. He entered the star's dream, and the twilight deepened to gold. Thus ended the second part of his journey beneath the sleeping sky. Within the darkness beyond the crystal dome, the wanderer felt the world dissolve around him. The streets, the towers, the twilight sky, all folded into shadow, then into light. He was falling, yet not through space. He was descending through memory itself. The question is the key. The wanderer turned, and before him stood a figure wrought of flame and memory. Its face was neither man nor woman, but a blend of all that had ever lived. Its eyes burned with the soft light of compassion and sorrow intertwined. "I am the dreamer," it said, "and I am the dream." "Then this city," the wanderer said softly, "is your sleep." "Yes," said the being, "and my penance." The star's voice trembled like a harp string drawn across eternity. "Once I was a sun among many, bright and full of song. Worlds danced around me, alive with laughter. But pride burned brighter than wisdom, and I sought to still time itself, to preserve the beauty I saw so that it might never fade. I wrapped the moment in my own light, and so I fell asleep inside it." The wanderer bowed his head. "And the city?" "The city is the echo of that wish," said the dreamer. "The beings who once dwelled upon my worlds, caught between seconds when I bound time. They became the dreamers within my dream. They breathe only as I slumber." The wanderer felt sorrow bloom within him like dawn. "You wished to preserve beauty, and in doing so imprisoned it." "Yes." The dreamer's light dimmed, flickering like a candle in its own wind. "Now they linger in half-life, neither lost nor living. To wake would release them, but in waking they must fade. Their time will move again, and time devours all." The wanderer looked upward. Above them, the golden light shimmered like a heartbeat, vast and slow. "And if you do not wake, then they will remain as they are, forever caught in the stillness of my remorse." The wanderer's voice was quiet. "Then perhaps what they need is not your awakening, but your forgiveness." The dreamer regarded him, its gaze burning through the fabric of his being. "You speak as one who knows forgetting." The air trembled. The light around them coalesced, and suddenly the wanderer saw himself reflected in the dreamer's eyes. Behind that reflection were other faces, his own, over and over, through lifetimes. A shepherd, a scholar, a soldier, a child. He saw every life he had lived, every dream he had chased and lost. He saw the moments he had turned away from love, from mercy, from truth, each a heartbeat missed, each a thread cut short. He fell to his knees. "I have forgotten more than I remember," he whispered. "I sought truth because I lost myself." "And still," said the dreamer gently, "you came to wake me." "Why?" "Because no one should sleep forever," said the wanderer. "Not even those who fear the dawn." The dreamer stepped closer. Its light enveloped him, searing and soft all at once. "Then you will bear my fire. Enter the center of my heart, where my first thought was born. There, release the pulse I have hidden, the moment I bound the world. But know this, what you free will not be kept. All you love, even the memory of this place, will pass." The wanderer lifted his head, eyes filled with the reflected constellations of a dreaming sun. "Then let it pass. The beauty of waking lies in its end." The dreamer smiled, the smile of a sunrise first remembering itself. It reached forward, and its hand became flame. "Then awaken me," it said. The wanderer stepped forward into the light. At once the world ignited. He was no longer standing but falling again, this time through fire. The heartbeat grew thunderous, the rhythm of creation itself. He saw worlds forming and collapsing, stars birthing stars, lives blooming and fading. He saw the city suspended in its half-light, every soul trembling as time began to stir. Within the burning brilliance, he saw a single orb of light, small, trembling, pure, the star's heart. Around it coiled bands of golden fire, each marked with symbols that pulsed like the language of eternity. He reached for it, and as his hand touched its surface, he felt everything. Sorrow, joy, love, loss, the full weight of all that has ever lived. And then, silence. The fire dimmed to a whisper. The heart's surface cracked. A single tear of light fell from it, descending through the air like a star being born. The wanderer caught it in his palm. The dreamer's voice came faintly. "In waking me, you must also wake yourself. Remember who you are." And the light burst. The dream shattered. For an instant that spanned eternity, the city, the star, the wanderer, all became one pulse of blinding brilliance. Then the light receded, and there was only stillness, not of sleep, but of peace. When the light receded, the wanderer found himself kneeling upon the marble of the great square once more, the one where the clock tower stood frozen against the twilight. Yet the silence that surrounded him now was not the stillness of sleep, but of something vast about to breathe. The air shimmered. A low tremor rippled through the city's bones, and the motionless fountains began to ripple with the faintest stir of water. The hands of the great clock quivered. Then, for the first time in an age, they moved, a single breath forward. The city exhaled. A wind swept through the streets, soft as the sigh of the newly woken. Dust rose from stones that had forgotten the touch of time. The still figures began to shift. Eyes fluttered open, fingers twitched, lips parted as though remembering the taste of air. The wanderer rose slowly, his cloak glowing faintly with the star's fire still woven through its threads. Around him the people stirred, each inhaling a single breath that seemed to pull color back into their veins. And above, the dreaming star blazed awake. Its light poured across the sky like the dawn of creation, a golden tide spilling into the eternal twilight. The towers shone like polished mirrors of heaven, and the glass streets reflected 1,000 suns. The air itself rang with a low, beautiful hum, the voice of the city remembering its own heartbeat. The woman of twilight appeared beside him once more, though now her form was clearer, her eyes bright with tears of light. "You have done it," she whispered. "You woke the dreamer." The wanderer looked up. "And the dream?" "It unravels," she said, not in sorrow but in wonder. "Everything that was bound begins to flow again. The moment you freed will now move, as all moments must." They watched together as the city shimmered, its outlines softening. The walls became transparent, the streets like rippling glass. Through them he could see constellations, the endless dance of stars newly alive. The city was not fading. It was returning to the current of time, becoming one with the river it had once defied. The people, too, smiled through their tears, gazing around them with the tender astonishment of those newly born. A child laughed, a sound so pure that the air itself seemed to blossom around her. A musician plucked his frozen strings, and music poured forth like sunlight through rain. A mother embraced her child, and their forms dissolved into light, carried upward like sparks returning to the flame. The woman turned to the wanderer. "You freed them, but what of you? The dream still holds your name." He closed his eyes. Within him, the fire of the star pulsed gently, not as heat, but as memory. He saw once more the faces reflected in the dreamer's eyes, all the lives he had lived, all the hearts he had touched and left behind. He understood then that his wandering had not begun with this journey, nor would it end with this awakening. "I am not apart from them," he said quietly. "Their waking is my own." The woman smiled, her form beginning to dissolve into the rising light. "Then you will remember when the stars forget again. That is the gift and the burden of those who walk between dreams." The wanderer reached for her hand, but his fingers met only light. The city rose higher, its towers melting into the morning sky. The clock tower struck once, a sound clear as the first heartbeat of creation. He stood alone upon the marble square as the last of the twilight faded. The star above him blazed, no longer dreaming, but awake, radiant, alive. Its light poured down upon him like a benediction, and he lifted his face to it without fear. A single word came to him then, his name, the one he had forgotten for ages. It echoed softly within him, more feeling than sound, carrying with it the warmth of all he had loved and lost. He smiled. Then, as the city's last light dissolved into dawn, he walked forward, into the horizon where sky and sand met, into the endless story that has no final chapter. And so it was that the city beneath the sleeping sky awoke. Time remembered its heartbeat. The star remembered its song. And somewhere beyond the edges of the world, a storyteller's voice whispered to the night, "All dreams must end, that life may begin again." Thus ended the tale of the wanderer who freed the sleeping sky, though in truth, such tales never end. They only sleep until someone remembers them once more.